What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Slice of TV, where we go through the latest and greatest in the world of television. I am one of your hosts, Brett Parker. Joining me, as always, for our walkthrough of The Last of Us Season 2 is my good friend, Wyatt from Cinema Trip Reviews. Welcome back, sir.
What's going on, everybody?
We're back once again to talk more about The Last of Us Season 2. And after last week's insane episode, we kind of got an episode that kind of brings it down to a certain level, and is it's somber, emotional, but there's really nothing like intense that goes on. It's a very mellow episode, which feels right for all the chaos that we got in that in that last one. So we're talking about episode episode 3, which is called The Path. It was directed by Peter Hoare and written by Craig Mazin, who I'm just going to mention. Craig Mazin writes every episode in the season, so I won't have to mention him unless I need to. For anyone who doesn't know what we do here, we go through like our thoughts on each episode of The Last of Us Season 2, and we're going to be talking spoilers. So if you haven't seen the new episode, or you're not watching the show and you don't want to be spoiled, I don't know what you're doing here. But please go watch the episode and then come back and listen to our thoughts, and let us know what you thought of the episode, or let us know how you think we're doing covering the show, because we'd like to hear your feedback for everything that we're doing here. So leave your comment down below. All right, Wyatt, what did we think of episode 3? I'm going to let you take the lead on this one.
I thought it was pretty good, man. Like you said, I think it was a good little reprieve, a nice little. I wouldn't even say it was nice, because we're dealing with a lot of emotions here, especially in the beginning. I mean, just to kick off, I mean, you have they updated intro of the show now, where they removed Joel at the very end of it.
My heart.
I had to rewind it because I was like, no way, did they really just do that?
They sure did. That's why I never skipped the intro to this show.
Yeah, they sure did. But yeah, I think this was a nice little break from all the crazy stuff that's been happening over the first 2 episodes. I do think that because of the first season and just the first couple episodes, how everything has been kind of, I wouldn't say slow paced, but decently paced. I feel like this episode, it's going now. Like it's like you find out what's going on with Ellie. They have that meeting, and then they're immediately like, we're moving on. We're going to Seattle, like lock, stock, and barrel. There's no not a lot of like planning for the trip or anything. Like they're on their way. They're at Seattle by the end of the episode, pretty much. And it was like, I feel like they could have maybe paced it a little bit slower. Like, just because I don't mind that kind of stuff. I like the character building and everything. I like seeing the process. But I feel like the back half of the episode, it definitely felt a little rushed for me. But I mean, that's kind of a little bit how it is in the games. Like they leave and then they're almost immediately like right outside of Seattle and stuff. Right. So I mean, I'm not sure what they would have been able to do in between, like maybe come up with something new, but it just felt like a little rushed as far as Dina and Ellie going straight from Jackson almost immediately to Seattle, you know?
Yeah.
But I was very interested on how like they did the meeting and everything, because that was somewhat new as well from the games. They didn't do that in the game and everything. So I liked the whole episode. For the most part, I thought it was really well done, really well paced, except for that, like maybe last 15 minutes or so of the episode. It felt a little rushed just to get to Seattle.
Yeah, I agree with you to a degree. Because here's the problem. The show is clearly going in a certain direction, where the game, spoiler for anyone who hasn't played the game, when Joel dies, we kind of have a weird time jump after that, where you actually find out that Tommy has gone out to try to find Abby and her gang, and he's out there fighting the wolves and all that. And then he comes back, and then and then after that is when Ellie and Dina actually like meet up with him at a certain point, and then he kind of goes back to Jackson, because in the game, as we mentioned last week, Tommy is with Joel during his death. So Tommy is like, it hits Tommy even harder than what you see in the show. And you also get your first play with Abby, or kind of a first full playthrough with Abby, where you kind of are seeing her perspective of the after of what she has done. So yeah, it's them just focusing on, and I think that's why we get the attack on Jackson. Maybe another reason why we get that attack on Jackson, to kind of get the effects and the fact that what is the reason behind only Ellie and Dina going to Seattle, kind of getting that whole thing. And then, the reason why we don't get Tommy already doing what Ellie wants to do, which is
Yeah.
seek revenge, because that's kind of his whole mindset in the game. Where this Tommy in the show is very different than what we see Tommy in the game.
Yeah, because if I remember correctly in the game, like, it cuts to, like, 3 months or whatever after Joel dies and all that,
Mhm.
and then, like, Ellie's like, "Alright, we need to get Tommy, we're gotta go out here and hunt these people," and then
Yep.
they're like, "Oh, yeah, Tommy's already gone," and they're like,
Yeah, Tommy's
"What
been
the hell?
gone.
We
You're like,
gotta go get
what?
Tommy," and it's like yeah, and then the show, he's a little bit more, he's all there, he's not, like,
Mhm.
letting rage impact his decisions and all that,
Exactly.
he's like, "Listen, we just had the town attacked, we can't really risk letting a bunch of people go or the resources, but we'll leave it up to everybody to decide," type thing, and just, like, I think that was a decent way to go about it, but at the same time, I'm a little I wouldn't say upset, but, like, I don't why isn't Tommy just like, "We need to go out here," like, why isn't he pushing it a little bit harder? Like, I understand Maria doesn't want him to go or doesn't wanna waste the resources, but I mean, like he says in the episode, he is his brother, he knows, like, who he is, like, why isn't he a little bit more mad? Why doesn't he want more revenge or anything, I understand wanting to protect the town and its people, but at the same time, I'm just not used to this kinda Tommy,
Yes.
based from the game and everything.
Yeah, very, very night and day between the
Mhm.
show and the game. And you kind of understand his mindset when he is deciding that, he needs to help rebuild, and he can't really put himself out there like that in front of the town, because then they might have some they might want to, like, either force him out, or they'll just have a different thought
Yeah,
process on him. And
like,
Maria
question his
and
leadership or
right, and
something.
also Maria is probably like, "No, this is," like, trying, like, talking to him about how this is a bad idea if you were to do
Yeah,
this, because I guarantee there's, some scenes that probably were filmed, or, or even things they talked about behind the scenes where they're like, we need to have, like, a scene with Tommy and Maria where Tommy is just like, like, hell bent on going to get revenge, and Maria talks
yeah,
him out of it and kind of tells him, like, this is why you shouldn't do this. We're talking about one person compared to however many people are in Jackson. And I think
that would've been a good
it
scene.
would have
I
been a
think they
great
shoulda added
scene.
something like that.
The thing is, I feel Maria is very underplayed in this show. Like,
Yeah,
we get a glimpse of her in season one. We don't get a lot of her, but we kind of get introduced to her. And then season two, it's just like, like, she feels like such a strong character, and they're just very underwhelming. Like,
yeah.
she's there for
Pretty
like,
much
crucial
she's supposed
decisions.
to be that hard ass, pretty
Right.
much.
But, like, especially in this episode, it's like she doesn't really do anything other than really just stand, sit behind the table there as they're making the decision whether or not to send people to Seattle. And I'm like,
Yeah,
man, I kind of want more Maria. And I think that idea of a scene would have been pretty strong, especially after what we see, like, right off the bat, which is Tommy coming in and seeing his brother's body for the first time and having to clean
yeah,
the body. And you see the watch, which is kind of your, he's dead, but, like, that's your affirmation that this is
yeah.
Joel, he is dead.
There
uh
was something so creepy about that scene to me too, just, like, the way they would show, like, Joel underneath the sheet and everything, just,
yeah,
like, the close-up of his face, like, you could see, like, just the I don't know, it was just something creepy about that whole scene and how dark it was lit and just Tommy sitting there, I don't know, it just made me feel a certain way, like, I wasn't ready to process that he's actually gone now and he's laying
right,
there on the table.
yeah,
Um, but I'm wondering if they're gonna swap it now for the show. Like in the game, like we mentioned, like Tommy was the one that left first, and then Ellie and Dina go after him. I wonder since Ellie and Dina leave without their permission, if Tommy's actually gonna try to go after him and try to stop him or something now. Like maybe that's his reason to go out.
yeah.
I
I
don't know.
mean, he definitely feels a responsibility for Ellie now, since he is kind of
Mhm.
the last quote unquote family that she has left. Even Catherine O'Hara mentions it. Uh, you're all that she has. You have to take the place of Joel in her eyes. So
Yeah. That
if
was a
you,
great scene too,
oh, she
like, with him and Catherine O'Hara.
yeah, Gail is a great addition to the show that we didn't get in the game. And again, we get a mention of Eugene, and I'm just like, when are we
Yeah.
getting the episode? When is that episode happening? Like, we need the Gail Eugene episode, like we did with episode 3 of the first season, so we can
Yeah.
all have our hearts ripped out of our chests again this season. But
Yeah.
I I just I think what made it so powerful, especially in that opening scene, was the fact that we're seeing Tommy focusing on Joel's body, but the camera pans out and we see
Mhm.
all the bodies of the people of Jackson that lost their lives, and it's really fitting when they're doing the voting and it gets voted against to send people to Seattle because you get the one woman who literally gets on a chair and she's just like, why? Like, we all love Joel. He was like, we all, he was a powerful presence in our community, but like, other people died. Like, Sarah, Susan's sister died in the attack. Like, she's mentioning all these things. Like, why should we, be just focusing on one person when we should be focusing on just the community? And I think
Mm.
that's where Tommy and Maria are kind of seeing it too. But of course, I think Tommy is going to tell Ellie that he's on her side and, that he is in support of her. And I love how everybody kind of comes together to help her kind of present herself during that meeting. I think Jesse has
Mhm.
been. eh, Jesse is also a character I think who is underused in the show, but when he is used, he's always so good. Like, he's always so wise. Beyond, like, this guy is probably not much older than Ellie. He's probably in his early 20s,
Yeah, I think they
and
said he was, like, 3 or 4 years older or something, so he's
right.
probably, like, 23, 24.
And he's just so much wisdom, and what he's telling Ellie, like, you need to go in there and not be angry because they're not going to vote for angry. You have to present
Yeah,
yourself in a way that is going to hopefully change the minds of everybody on the board. And then,
and they show you what happens when you do go out there and act angry, like,
right.
nobody's gonna really listen to you 'cause the old dude
Oh,
that
Seth.
yeah, Seth, I was trying to remember his name. Yeah, it shows he comes out and has that passionate speech, his angry speech about what are we doing here? Like, why are we sitting here arguing? Like, we should go out here and kill these people, hunt these people down. And it's like you see exactly like people aren't really siding with him. He's letting the
Exactly.
emotions get the best of him. And I think it was wise for Ellie to go about it the way she did, like
Mhm.
saying like, don't do it for me or don't even do it for Joel. Do it for everybody. We're all a community here. Even though everybody that knows Ellie was just like, yeah, that's bullshit. We know what
Oh,
what she was trying to do.
yeah, Gail's the one who calls her out, or
Yeah.
saying to Tommy, like, you know, she's a liar. Like, that's what she does. Like, she just wanted it to sound good to get her way, but that's not how she
Mhm.
actually felt.
Yeah.
She took the advice, but Gail could see right through it. Like, they show Gail up in the balcony there, and you could
Yeah.
just see on her face, like, okay, whatever. Like,
Exactly, and I mean, we've
ugh,
seen it in the first couple episodes with Maria and Tommy and stuff whenever they're talking at the council
right,
when Dina and Ellie are there. It's like, so if Gail can see through it, I'm sure some of those other people on the council saw through it as well if they know Ellie.
right. And I think the fact that we had Seth as the character who kind of stands up for Ellie and standing up for getting revenge for Joel, I think is fitting because Seth, of course, is the bigot from the first episode. He's the one who
Yeah.
you know says something to Ellie because of the kiss at the dance, and Joel. The last thing that happened with between Seth and Joel was that Joel shoved him to the floor, and then that's
That's
like,
why he can't go on the trip.
yeah,
He
and
says.
it's funny that we get kind of that character being the one to stand up for her because of how he is, but he sees his wrongs, and not just for the sheer fact of, oh, because I have to, but it really, it's hopefully it's kind of like this vicious circle for him, that if I can have these strong feelings and people can change. I think that's the biggest thing for
Mhm.
him. Because he even says like, I would love to go. Like he would be there with her if he could, but he can't. And so
Yeah.
even to get the handshake was pretty powerful. Ellie doesn't like him. She still doesn't like him, even after the fact of him giving the horse and, saying what he
Done.
said in the gun and saying what he says at the meeting. Like, she doesn't like him. And that is 100% okay, because, you know, just because somebody does one thing doesn't mean you have to totally be like, well, I'll let bygones be bygones. It's just, you can just appreciate somebody for being a good person in that moment, but also can have some resentment for, things that they've done in the past. I want to shout out Seth's actor, Robert John Burke. This man was RoboCop in RoboCop 3.
Oh, for real?
And
I didn't know that.
he was the main guy in the movie Thinner. Did you ever see Thinner?
He was.
Yeah.
The Stephen King, based off the Stephen King book.
I was like,
I didn't know that was him.
I was like, this guy looks familiar. And for one of his first known for credits on IMDb was RoboCop 3. Not the most not the one people are going out in droves to watch, but hey, he was RoboCop at one point in his life.
I thought the dude looked familiar for some reason. I just couldn't picture where he was from. But holy shit, I didn't know that
wasn't what I thought he was from. I was thinking of some other things, and I was like, oh, all right, well, there it is.
Huh. That is interesting. But yeah, he did a really good job in this episode.
Yeah, he's fantastic. His character is a piece of shit, but he plays it really well, and hopefully we'll see more of Seth, and I mean, hopefully he continues his upward trajectory. He's making up for some wrongs he's done. Being a homophobic person doesn't make you likable. And Ellie is definitely the type of person who isn't going to just forgive in an instant. So the way that they write the character dynamics for between Seth and Ellie, I think is done really well.
And I mean, talking about the what kind of person Ellie is, that was the whole thing with Tommy and talking with Catherine O'Hara's character, where he's like, well, she just learned this all, like she's turning into Joel or whatever. She's like, this was the way she was before Joel. Like, Joel didn't have that much of an impact on her. It's all in the DNA. It has nothing to do with the nurturing of Joel.
This is a girl who was born during the outbreak. Like she wasn't. She doesn't know anything beforehand. She didn't have any parents. She was raised by Fedra, and she was literally bit and found out she was immune, and then trekked across the country for this cure. That's not a life you're just like, I feel I'm not, I have no resentment or anger in me. I'm like, no, it's 100% okay of the way that she kind of, the way she kind of projects herself, but it's also dangerous for her. Cause we get, the town hall decides they're not going to send anybody. And then you get, Dina like meeting up with Ellie, cause she knows exactly what Ellie's going to do. She's going to prep to go fight, but she gets in there and she's like, you gotta, like, what are these, all guns? Like, you don't have
so much stuff.
Yeah.
Like, how are you even going to take that out by yourself, Ellie?
You have nothing to, like, no med packs. You have like nothing that is going to help you if something were to go sideways. You just have guns. That's just, and there's like, what's your plan? I'm going to go kill Abby. I'm going to go to Seattle. And I'm going to kill Abby. Well, do you know what direction you're going? Southwest. All right. Like, it's so vague, but so of course Dina, she's like, well, I don't want to see you die. She clearly cares for Ellie, even if you don't know really where they're at or where she is with Ellie. It's very different than the game. Very different than the game.
That's
people,
what I was gonna say. The lines are kind of blurred in the show here compared to the game, where like in the game by this point, like they're already had sex. Like, yeah, exactly. Where like now it's like they're at a whole like will they or won't they type stage.
Right. They made Dina, like, I love what we're getting from who's the actress who's playing her right now?
Oh yeah. I don't have the characters pulled up.
Why is she not on the cast list? Oh man.
Isabella
Merced. I literally talked about her so much last week. But yeah, they wrote Dina in a way where, like, in the game, Dina she's bi 100%. Like, she was with Jesse like she is in the show, but then they broke up, and then she hooks up with Ellie, and now they're in kind of a relationship where this is like she's playing with Ellie, and I don't like it. I don't like that she's
Yeah.
like playing with her emotions. Like we get like they decide they're gonna go to Seattle, and they're like in a tent and they're talking to each other, and Dina's like, okay, well now you need to rate that kiss. What would you think about the kiss? Like, you're gay and I'm not, and I'm like, oh, what are we doing here?
Exactly.
What are we doing
I was like,
here?
"What the hell? Why would you say that?" And then, like, at the very end of the scene, she was just like, "I wasn't that high, by the way." So,
I'm
like, she,
like,
like, says,
come
like, okay,
on.
so she was more clear-headed, so she did it on purpose. So, like, she must not be that straight.
Uh, it's I mean, she's doing it beautifully, but it's just really frustrating because you can see Ellie's discomfort when this
Mhm.
conversation is happening, and I feel discomfort listening to the conversation because I'm like, stop doing
Yeah.
this. You're messing with this girl's head. Like she clearly has, like she is infatuated with you, and you're just toying with her. And
Yeah.
hopefully it leads to something good, because if it leads to something bad, I'm gonna be very upset. I'm gonna be
Same.
anti Dina.
But like you said with, like, Dina, I like the way that at least I mean, it's kind of the way in the game, but more so in the show, I would say, is, like, Dina has all the characteristics that, like, Ellie doesn't. Like, Ellie's hot-headed, she doesn't really plan, she just goes straight away with stuff, where Dina is, like, the opposite. She wants to plan, she is a little bit more clear-headed, she is the yin to, like, Ellie's yang, I like the
Oh
way
yeah.
that they kinda have that bond.
Yeah, because we see it a couple times. The first time that, like, when Ellie leaves the hospital, which is everything that happens in the hospital, at least that short bit where you get Ellie, waking up, she's got the tube sticking out of the side of her
Oh,
body, and then
yeah.
she wakes up and she has the vision of seeing Joel dying again, and she freaks out. But then she finally gets out of the hospital and she meets with Dina, and Dina is like, "Hey, so I've known ever since that day, because it's been 3 months. Like that's how long Ellie was in the hospital for." And so she's like, "Yeah, I know all of their names and I know where they're going." And of course, Ellie immediately is like, "Well, we gotta like she's pissed. Like I love her. She brings the cookies. Like,
Yeah, the peace
"Um,
offering.
don't be too mad at me."
But,
Because
like, Dina has a point, though, which is great. She's like, "We're like," because Ellie's like, "We wasted 3 months. We could have been out there tracking them." And she's like, "Well, we know where they're going. Why wouldn't we just wait till they're there so we know where they're at?" Like,
right,
it's a perfect yeah, it's
instead of
perfect logic.
chasing them around.
Exactly.
So that's where you get that first bit of planning from Dina compared to the hot headedness of Ellie. We definitely
Mhm.
got to speak about Ellie going to Joel's house, and you get to see the
Uh,
inside of the house, and then of course her kind of breaking down inside the closet, and crying, kind of grasping onto his jacket, which is the exact jacket that he is pretty much wearing throughout the entire show, which
yeah,
was done on purpose. And then
finds his gun and his watch and everything in the
yeah,
box.
w it was one of those things. I was like I said, every week I listen to the Last of Us podcast, that the official podcast of the show, and they were talking about how when she opens the box and she sees the watch, that she actually doesn't really react to the watch, because the watch she doesn't have a connection to the watch, because the
Yeah,
watch was a reminder for Joel, uh, about his actual daughter Sarah's death. It was the
yeah.
gun that meant more to her, because that's how their relationship was formed, was around violence, and Joel using that gun to protect her, or for her to protect Joel. So
Mhm.
it's a really strong scene. But yeah, going back to like the planning with Dina, I think it's great, and I think having them be kind of complete opposites, except for maybe when they're going out on patrol and they're just like, "Let's go in a building with clickers." Yeah,
Yeah.
you're like, "No, don't do that." But I think it's good. You get the whole thing where they're playing, she's planning it out, like the routes that they're going to take and what they need for supplies and everything. Where Ellie is just like, she's standing in the middle of this room, just like, oh, what do I do?
Yeah. You're gonna need boots, you can't be going around in the mountains in chucks, man. Like, what are you doing?
Like how she tries to fight that. You're like,
Yeah.
no, that's an awful idea. That's like walking around Disney World for 8 hours wearing $10 Walmart sneakers. Not a good
Yeah.
idea. Take it from me. Not a good idea. But yeah, then we get to we see a couple things.
Mhm.
We see these like a new sect of people. I don't remember
Yeah,
what the name
scars.
of who. Do you remember what they were like? What that sect was called? I can't remember. I don't think they
They're
mentioned
the
it in the
scars.
show. What is it?
The scars
Oh, the scars.
group?
That's right. Yeah, because they have
Yeah.
like the smiles
Yeah.
carved on their faces. But we see them as they're like moving through the woods, and we meet this adorable little girl with her dad, and they're having like a good conversation about like why they're doing what they're doing. And I like how everything is like they're somewhat religious. Like they
Mhm.
talk about how there was like a prophet. Like I love the girls just like, well, what, well, why don't we have why can't she save us? And he's like, well, she's been dead for 10 years, so that would kind of be hard for her. I just love how that's like, it's not just like, oh, yes, the divine power will save us. It's like, no, she's been dead. I don't think it's going to work anymore.
Yeah, and they have, like, their things about it, like their whistles, that's how they communicate, like,
Yes.
throughout the woods and
Which
stuff.
still gives me nightmares in the
Carry the
games.
hammers, yes, to
Oh my
hold one of the
God.
hammers and stuff.
When you get to that part in the game where you have to fight these things or these
Yeah.
people, they're terrifying because all you hear is those damn whistles, and half the time you don't see
Mhm.
where they are, and then they just pop up like peekaboo, and they just smash you with a hammer, and you're like, fuck.
That's what I thought was pretty interesting about this episode too, because you don't really have that deep dive in the
No,
games with the scars, because in
no,
the game, they're portrayed as the enemy,
yeah,
like,
they're
they're bad people that are
yep,
trying to kill you and loot your stuff, and you get to know a couple of the scars that are trying to get away from them, trying to escape. So, and I'm sure that'll happen either later this season or possibly next season, who knows? So it was interesting how you got kind of get to know them and kind of for lack of a better term, they humanize them in the show a lot
mhm.
more. Like they're real people with real feelings. They have children and stuff, and they're not just the enemy like they are in the games. Which I think it's a pretty interesting aspect because that's what they're making the wolves out to be in the show. Is they're the enemy. They're the ones
Oh
that are trying to
yes,
kill everybody.
yeah, because they the whole thing is that the scars, they somebody's coming after them, and they have to escape, and then it cuts away from it because it goes back to Ellie and Dina doing their thing, and they first they should they're going down the path, and they see a dead scar in the middle of the road, and then they go off the trail, and Dina's the first one to go off, and she sees something terrifying because she comes out and pukes, and then Ellie goes in there, and we actually see, which is heartbreaking because
Yeah.
even though we only saw this little girl for a minute, but just kind of that 1 minute, you're just like, man, I hope nothing bad happens to her. Unfortunately,
Well,
five
The
minutes
Last of
later,
Us.
yeah, she is unfortunately dead, along with like everyone that we saw before. Like it's
Yeah.
just forest full of bodies, and they don't stray away from it. They show us all of them, and they have to move on. They have to they clearly, and they're also underestimating the wolves, because that the wolves are the ones that did this, like
Yeah.
100%, because they actually mention it. They say wolves as when they're having the conversation, um as they're going down that path. But they get to Seattle, and they're like, "Oh, well, it's this is pretty peaceful. There's no one shooting at us, so there must not be that many wolves around. So this might actually be
Yeah.
easier than we thought." And then we meet Manny again. I can't wait for this guy to die. I can't stand this
Oh my
dude.
god, I know.
This is the
Same.
guy that kicks Ellie after Joel
Mhm.
gets killed, and
Yeah, 'cause she
he's
slices his face open.
yeah, and he's like on the top of a skyscraper watching over the city, and this is when you get that comment from Ellie and Dina about like, oh, this should be pretty easy, and then no, because the final shot is literally two tanks driving down, and then just a massive amount of soldiers behind it, and you're like, oh, this is about to get bad.
This is oh no.
Yeah, that's exactly what I did. I was like, oh, well, this sucks. So,
It's gonna be a lot of sneaking around like in the game, like through
oh
Seattle and
yeah,
stuff.
it's interesting because, of course, after the episode is over, it gives you a preview of what the next episode is going to be.
Mhm.
I'm not going to talk about it We'll talk about it in detail after the episode comes out, but it's interesting. It's interesting just based on how they edited that next week on Last of Us. I'm
Yeah.
like, oh no, because there's some
Uh-oh.
things I'm already seeing where I'm like, that didn't happen in the game. And yes, I know everybody out there, there's probably people out there like, can you stop with that, man? Like, no, this is literally a show based on a video game that I love.
Exactly.
And that's so that phrase will be mentioned many, many times for the both of us because we've both played both games. So
exactly.
he literally has. If you're watching the
us,
video, he's got the game behind him. I keep forgetting to put out my original PS3 version of The Last of Us behind me, like I did last.
Yeah. So if you're sick of us mentioning the game, I'm sorry, but it's going to be happening throughout anytime we're talking about the show.
It's not going to happen because here's the thing: we want you to go play the games. We do.
Yeah,
that is
exactly.
like I feel like that's. I mean, we want you to watch the show because we think the show is fantastic, but we want you to play the games because they are one of the greatest games.
Not everybody can play the games or has access to them, so maybe they don't know what happens and the differences between the show. That's why we want to talk about them.
Yeah, I mean, it's not going to end, people. So strap in, because the references are going to come out.
Speaking about the game, they did kind of plant the seeds there in that scene where Ellie and Dina find the bodies. When she comes out and starts throwing up, she's like, "Oh, that normally doesn't ever happen. That's weird." So it's like, are they kind of planting the seeds of something that's going to happen like it happens in the game that might happen in the show? You know?
We'll leave it at that.
Exactly. I'm not going to say any more
there, but
it's pretty interesting. I did take notice of that. I was like, I wonder if they are going to do that within the show or not.
Overall, this episode is a vast departure from what we saw in episode 2, but I think it was needed.
Yeah.
I think with how much happens in episode 2, this is a kind of a breath of fresh air, even though there's a lot of there's grief and just a lot of sadness, like knowing the fact that Joel is actually gone. Like, we get no Pedro Pascal in this episode, not even a flashback. It's his body is under a sheet, which probably wasn't actually him, but that's the amount of joy. And we get his headstone, which we didn't talk about the scene where she actually visits his grave. Which is pretty powerful.
About the bodies at the beginning, like you really get the scope of it at that scene because you see all the grave markers and how many people either died in that fight or just in general since they've been living in Jackson. Like, there's so many headstones there.
Well, they were mentioning during the in the Last of Us podcast, they were talking about, I was like, hey, why is the cemetery like outside of the city instead of being in the city? And it's like, well, they're building a city, and in this world, people probably die faster than, in the world we live in. So do you want your city or your town to be the majority of it being a cemetery? It's like, no, we want to find somewhere like where they buried the bodies is a very peaceful place. It's like on this plain, and it's like you see the beautiful mountains in the background because it's Wyoming. There's like no, even now, no one lives there. Like, Wyoming is a very barren place, but it's a beautiful place. And so that is kind of why it is outside the city, because they just don't want that to be, you don't want to be walking down the street and then just this massive cemetery in your town, so but yeah, Ellie brings Joel some coffee beans, which is kind of a callback to his love for coffee that he couldn't find because it was a hot commodity after the outbreak. And I really wanted a Carrie moment to happen just to get a laugh, but we didn't get it. Just Joel's hand comes out.
Joel's infected now.
Oh no! People would riot. People would riot if we had infected Joel. Oh no! Oh, this is how we deal with our sorrows. We come up with ridiculous outcomes for our favorite characters. Oh, but I mean, to be honest, I think it's, in my eyes, I think it's the second best episode of the season so far. I think, of course, episode 2 is the banger. I think it's going to be hard to beat what episode 2 did. Episode 1, of course, is like the start of a season, so it's not as strong, but it's bringing everybody together, or reintroducing people or introducing new characters. So it's not going to be as impactful. This is impactful, even though you're not getting high octane action. It's but it's written so perfectly, and everyone in it acts their ass off. And I
Yeah.
will shout from the rooftops every week when we talk about the show that Bella Ramsey is fantastic as Ellie. And for anyone out there who doesn't
Hey.
agree with us, I don't fucking care. Leave your angry comments below.
Yeah. I mean, we didn't even talk about the scene towards the beginning, like when she was getting out of the hospital, she had the meeting
The
with
meeting
Catherine
with
O'Hara
Gail,
too.
yeah.
That was a good one.
It's a
'Cause
very
she's like, "There's so many fucked up people in this town." She's like, "Well, not you though, right?" And she's
yeah.
like, "No, I'm fine."
She's like, "Oh, all right. Well, I guess that's cool." Oh, we also didn't talk about Gail at the baseball game.
Well,
She's
yeah,
just sitting
that's
in the
where
outfield, which is great.
yeah, she's like, "I got season tickets."
Yeah. She's got beer that she got from some dude.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I
Kind of
mean,
talked about a little bit, like,
yeah.
what at least the context of what they were talking about and everything.
Yeah, I don't think we need to go into every single bit of every
Yeah.
episode. We go into it enough. So if there's something we missed that we're hoping we talked about, we apologize, but we don't want to watch. Clearly, you watch the episode if you're listening to this or watching this. And yeah, we're gonna be back next week to talk about episode 4, or see where we go from here. There's a lot that happened
Yeah.
at the end of this episode. Um, yeah,
Looks like
very
there's gonna be a
excited.
lot happening next week too. There's
Yes,
gonna be a lot to
a
talk about.
lot, a
It's
lot.
gonna start getting crazy going forward.
So, yeah, we'll be back for that next week. Uh, Wyatt, what do you got going on over at Cinema Trip Reviews?
Yeah, if you already haven't checked them out, definitely check out our half-baked review featuring Jashawn and Joe from Movie Dumpster, and also the Cheech and Chong's Nice Dreams episode that I was on over at the Movie Dumpster channel. This week, I'm going to be reviewing the movie Companion that's starring Sophie Thatcher and Jack Quaid. It came out a couple months ago. It's a little late. I wanted to review it when it came out, but I didn't get to the theaters on time before it hit streaming and everything. So I'm going to be reviewing that this week. And then I got the Akira review coming up in a couple weeks, and that's going to be featuring Dustin and Paul from Flicks and Friends.
Very, very exciting. Yeah, we know those guys. They're pretty cool. As for us, we got quite a bit of stuff on the channel right now. You could check out our latest episode of another show we do called The Monster Zone, which is a show that my co-hosts Dan and Angela host, where we talk about monster movies from all decades. And the latest episode is 1959's The Alligator People, starring Lon Chaney. Our 200th episode of the main podcast is out right now, where we talked about 1996's Kingpin. So go check that out. Please
Definitely.
go check out the YouTube video, because it was a weird upload last week, so it didn't really get what I wanted out of it. So go check out the video form of that, because it's worth it. It was a good time.
Check it out.
Comedies are hard to do on podcasts, but I think we did a pretty good job with it. And then
really
this week, they're so hard, because all you do is quote it. And you know what? We didn't even care. We didn't care. We said it the week before. We didn't care. And then this week is our kind of Val Kilmer tribute episode, where we talked about another 1996 film, The Ghost in the Darkness, which is a Val Kilmer movie that does not get talked about very much. So we decided to talk about it on our show. And we have a great guest. We have Captain Steve Coates of the Bucket of Chum Shark Movie Podcast. So make sure to check that out. It'll be out on Friday. And yeah, there's other stuff happening down the road. We're going to be part of a awesome event called Livestream for the Cure on May 17th at noon. It's an event that goes from May 16th to May 17th. It's pretty much raising money for cancer research, and it's going to be live on Twitch. So make sure to follow Livestream for the Cure over on twitch.tv, and check us out at noontime on Saturday, May 17th. And also, one last thing, if you're going to be in Salem this Saturday, whatever day that is, May 3rd, I think, May 4th, whatever Saturday, this Saturday, if you're going to be in Salem for Salem Horror Fest, I'm going to be there for the day. So come check. So come say hi to me, or go say hi to my friends over at the Barron's Hideout Podcast. It's going to be a fun time. We're going to be, there's going to be a mixture of short films and just kind of hanging out in Salem. It's going to be a good time. So make sure to take advantage of that. That's it. That's all I got. All the links for everything will be down below. Please leave your comments on what you thought of this episode, or what you would like to see us talk about. When we talk about the show, we'd love your suggestions. And we always, of course, take suggestions on what you'd like to see us cover for TV in the future. TV's hard to cover. Definitely not everything we're going to do is going to be episode per episode because it takes a lot of time. But, if you have any suggestions, please let us know down below, or, you can leave your comment on whatever podcast app you're listening to us on. So that is it for me. Wyatt, always appreciate you being here talking to The Last of Us with me. And I will see you next week, buddy. So I am Brett Parker, and that is Wyatt from Cinema Trip Reviews. And this has been another episode of Slice of TV. We'll see you all again on the next one. Bye.
Yeah,